Alright, today we have 3 movies. It was going to be 5, but I saw a couple of those Antonio Banderas movies that have been coming out, but I'll probably talk about those around like with Justice League or something. But I did want to do these 3, and we're going to start with Murder on the Orient Express. And I was actually quite excited. It is one of those cases where you have to ask yourself, with the type of movie that it is, the whole mystery aspect, and the whole idea is that the whole thing is trying to figure out where the story is going to go. So this is actually one of those times where it probably is legitimately warranted to be wondering if a remake is necessary, especially if they're... Because you can't, in a story like this that comes from such a famous novel, you can't exactly just change the ending, or entirely anyway. So, but when I learned that Kenneth Branagh was going to direct it, I know that he hasn't had like the flair he used to have for a while, doing stuff like Thor and Jack Ryan's Shadow Recruit, which by no means are bad movies, but it's like when you look at like his Shakespeare movies, like his incredible, amazing 4-hour-long Hamlet movie, or Henry V, actually got him a few Oscar nominations, including Best Director. There's been kind of a lack from him as a director lately, but I was still excited because I feel like this is the kind of territory where he can really come back and he can really... This is a story that someone like him could really show off with. And I was so happy that he did live up to that. And another thing that really didn't let me down was, I remember when it was first brought up that he was going to make this, everybody was like, so who's going to be his Poirot? It could be anybody. And then most reasonable people said, you know what, it's probably him. And of course it is. And he really does something interesting with the character here. The thing about this is, obviously, a lot of his background is like, the stage, and, with the stage you gotta play to the back of the room and all that. And this is a character that would be really, really easy to take way over the top. But he actually finds a perfect balance here to where there's definitely is something, like with scenes like when he's just by himself and he's reading out of his book and he's laughing to himself, or the moments where he gets to have like really big monologues and all that. But there's also something, we sense kind of something dark and tragic kind of inside him too, to where he's not just this over-the-top kind of light character amidst this kind of, shady environment or whatever. And I like the way that they show that off in me. Like, it was clear from the get-go how important it was to him to show off the character, because you'll notice there's going to be a lot of comparisons to the 1974 movie, I'll tell you now. But the thing here is, when we watch the original movie and we see Albert Finney's portrayal, the thing about it is that when the movie just kind of starts, and he's just kind of there, and we pretty much know just as much about him as we do the other characters, and that works for that movie. But I really liked that the character gets like a whole intro just by himself before he even gets to the train. He actually has to take a boat to the train. That's how long we get to, like, I was starting to wonder how much they were going to be able to fit into the movie, because the original movie is 2 hours and 7 minutes, and it's all on the train pretty much. And this one's only an hour 54. That's almost like 15 minutes less, and yet it takes them quite a bit to get to the train in this one. But he really did figure out exactly how to whittle it down a little bit, but not take very much out of it. To be able to have this nice big introduction to our lead character here. We have, because it starts off with the whole eggs thing, which is a nice touch, but then going on and doing the whole balancing out on the shit thing. And we actually get to see him solve a mystery before any of the rest of the movie takes place. And I thought there was so much they packed in to show this character off before the movie even really got started, and I thought that was a really great idea, and he showed it off in the best way possible. I was talking about how there's almost something sad and tragic to him. I really like the scene when he's talking to his buddy, who was Martin Balsam in the original movie, and he's talking about... Oh, no, he met him later, sorry. But he was talking to somebody at the beginning, before he left, and he was saying, he's talking about how how he works, like how his mind works and how he's able to solve all this stuff. And he says that it makes most of his life unbearable that he's able to do that and be so meticulous with his thoughts towards everything. And I thought that really added a nice kind of tortured quality to him. I'm not familiar with the source material. I assume a lot of that goes into this, but once again, my main comparison here is the original movie. So it goes forward, and we do meet most of our characters here and there, much like in the original movie, just kind of in passing until they're all in one place. And there's a really great shot here. Like, this is when you could tell that Branagh was really going to go for it. And the shots at the beginning are great too. The town, like the buildings and all that in the opening scenes do look a bit, fake, like added in post-production stuff. But still looks good nonetheless. The shots reminded me of another Poirot movie, which was Evil Under the Sun, when Peter Ustinov played him. And I couldn't help but wonder if that was kind of Branagh's idea to kind of take what looks like similar shots from the different movies to do that. But here, there is a very particular shot that's very good, that rivals, obviously Scorsese showed us with Hugo that train stations are a really great place for really awesome, like, long shots. And I know I've been ridiculing long takes a lot lately, but this one's really well done. This is how you do it. When we kind of follow him as he's getting on the train, we follow him like all the way down the thing, and then he goes up onto the train, and then the camera doesn't follow him necessarily. It stays on the outside, and through the windows we see him go through the whole train and run into every major character, all in one shot. And that's really good. That's, like I said, that's how you do it. So take notes, Atomic Blonde. And yeah, talking about the really big cast list we have here. Obviously, some of them are just gonna kind of be on the side because there's so many damn characters to keep up with. There's like, every time I watch the 74 movie, it's like there's like 5 people that are big names in it. I completely forget are in it until I watch it again because there's just so many people to keep up with. And I was wondering how he was gonna handle that, because that's, especially with like almost 15 minutes less of a runtime and a late start, because it's like, how are you going to do this without feeling like you're totally cramming all these people in? And you have enough to make it look like, to make anybody a suspect, more or less, because they have to have enough attention to at least be suspicious. So they all kind of have to have their moment at least once. And there's a lot of them. But let's start off with Depp. Because you see Depp and he's got the mustache and all that. And so you're like, what are we in for? Because you think back to like Mordecai and his Burton movies, and this stuff where he's just been really off the rails, and obviously the Pirates movies are getting worse, so it's like, what kind of bullshit are we gonna get here? But oh my god, thank you. This is the Depp we need. This is the Depp that we want. Are you listening? This is the Depp that we need. He is obviously... He's not doing, and he's not particularly over the top at all. He's suave as fuck, and he's just playing it totally straight. There's like, maybe, when he catches his own reflection in the mirror, it's like the one time he makes an over the top face. But other than that, he's just playing it. There's the shot when he's walking down, he's got like the long coat, and he's like walking back to his room or something, and I swear I saw Joey Pistone from Donnie Brasco. It was like, holy shit, Depp lives! I can't believe this, and it's great. I really liked him in this, and I really wish this is what he could go back to doing. It seriously felt like you were watching one of his performances from the 90s. And I loved every second he was on screen, and I was so incredibly grateful for that. And thank Christ for Branagh for getting that out of him, with keeping it nice and in line. And yes, like, easily some of the best stuff he's done in a while. Obviously, Black Mass is like the cream of the crop of what he's been putting out, but I mean, this is definitely, yes, this all the time. I was also a bit worried about Josh Gad, because it's not, because obviously the part in the original movie was played by Anthony Perkins. And you look at these two and you think, well, if there's one thing Josh Gad is known for, it's how big and theatrical he is. And if there's one thing Anthony Perkins is known for, it's how subtle he is and how downplay he is. So it's like, this is an interesting casting choice. What are we gonna do? And yeah, Gad's really good here. He's not over the top. He's not theatrical. He's good throughout the movie, but there's one scene where he's really good, and he's kind of like the one that you kind of constantly have your eye on because he's the one that looks the most suspicious, and the way he kind of plays with that really. Yes, I was very impressed because, like I said, this is not his wheelhouse at all, at least from what I've seen, and that's quite a bit. So I was really happy to see that and to see that he didn't soil an Anthony Perkins performance where you see like a guy that's so known for being downplayed, and you have an actor like Gad who's able to make that character his own without doing the thing he usually does. It was really good stuff. I also like the addition of, his name is Leslie Odom Jr., is that it? I think he was in Hamilton or something. I'm really not familiar with him. But I liked his addition here for a number of reasons. Number one, he from what I see, I feel like this is the only thing I've seen him in, but from what I see here, he's a really good actor. And he's doing the Sean Connery part from the original movie. And what I obviously like about his casting here is the way, not just is he really good in it, but obviously the period that the movie's set in, that they make his race a factor, and the fact that not only is it a factor in how the other characters see him, but also the fact that we know he's having the secret affair with Daisy Ridley in this case. And it's already a forbidden love thing when both the actors were white in the original movie. But now that he's a black guy and the era this movie is set in, it adds a whole other layer to the forbidden love that they feel for each other. So I thought that was a really great addition to how that fit together. And yeah, Daisy Ridley, I wasn't sure. Once we got on the train, she was perfectly fine. But I was very concerned in those moments, like on the boat, to where it's kind of like, it looked like she was doing a not so great audition for Titanic, and it felt very much like, it actually kind of felt this way too before everybody kind of found their groove, and that was, for like the first 20 minutes or so, it feels more like, and I don't know if it's the dialogue or the performances or what it is exactly, but everything kind of felt like a dress rehearsal with the way everybody was saying their lines. And it wasn't quite gelling at first, but once the movie finds its groove and all the actors kind of really seem to come together, it almost makes me feel like my big question is, was this shot in sequence? Because it was like, as the farther the movie went, it's like the more comfortable everybody got acting together, and the dialogue didn't feel like that anymore, and it actually started to feel more like, yeah, I mean, it does get, some of the acting can get pretty theatrical, but at the same, as much as downplayed as some of them are as well. But the thing about that was, like for instance, this Daisy Ridley scene felt very, it's like, does she think she's on the stage or something? But the thing about this though is like, this is almost the kind of story, and Brown kind of has the kind of style to where it's like, if somebody's going to be really overly theatrical in this, it doesn't seem that out of place. Because it does kind of feel like, but it does go beyond the whole one setting thing that is usually the general feel for this story. But it does feel to where it's not, I mean, like I said, if, like, for instance, Gad or Depp or somebody had decided to really, it's like chew the scenery or something, given how crucial their characters are, it probably would have felt pretty out of place and not right for this, but there was just enough of that. It almost feels like these performances are, yeah, I'm kind of going in circles here now, but it's, yeah, you get the idea. To where a little bit of theatricality would have been fine for this premise, but I like that they didn't really go too much into that. And like I said, a lot of them actually went much more downplay than you would have expected them to, which totally works. And then you have, like, Penelope Cruz playing the Ingrid Bergman part, which she won an Oscar for back in '74, and yeah, it's weird that she looks exactly like Ingrid Bergman with the hair and the costume, and she's a bit more intense. The weird thing about Bergman being the Oscar winner from that whole cast in the last movie was the fact that she was easily, like, the most downplayed. And yeah, and hers does make this work despite that intensity she adds to it actually works in favor of the character for sure, especially after the first shot we get of her, which is also a scene in the original movie on the platform when she has to bat people away. But yeah, so I really didn't mind at all that she played it a little differently, but actually probably added to it. So yes, and then of course Pfeiffer, where the thing about Pfeiffer's part here is I think Lauren Bacall had a lot more screen time in the original movie playing this part, so she had a lot more to kind of sink her teeth into, and Pfeiffer we kind of only periodically seem to cut back to. She only kind of waltzes into the scene when it's supposed to keep the scene moving. And for a while she's just kind of there, like I said, she's kind of another person like Daisy Ridley, where amazing as Pfeiffer always is, she was another one of those ones where the readings kind of felt like, is this a rehearsal or what? But then she has an incredible scene towards the end that completely... She upstages just about everybody. She almost upstages Branagh in Branagh's biggest moment. And that's saying something in regards to Branagh's biggest moment in this movie being bigger than the other ones that he has. And so, yeah, if there's a couple of characters that weren't really working for me here, it would be, is it Lucy Boynton, the one that was in The Blackcoat's Daughter, playing Elena, and the dude that's with her. Number one, it's kind of like they just kind of vanish for like an hour. It's like they get on the train and then we forget they exist until the shit has already gone down. And it's like, oh yeah, I forgot these characters existed. And it's not only that, though. Number two is the fact that this dude is like, while Brown certainly found like a sophistication here, and everything's got a nice feel to it, everything's starting to settle in, and the characters all make sense, the actors are playing them well, they fit the period. This guy is like so over the top, it gets kind of a dumb territory, with like his giant kick and then his anger problem. We get the idea that the anger problem is part of this character, but it just felt way overdone when they did it, especially with the movie being in, like, he does it at the beginning, but then in the middle when he comes back doing that shit, it's like, well, that's incredibly out of place. So it's like, so that didn't really work at all. But yeah, they are just pretty much on the side. But yeah, another thing that Branagh really added here was the exteriors. Because like I understand if a criticism could be, I certainly understand actually, that a criticism could be the whole idea is the claustrophobia of the one setting. But the thing here is Branagh actually goes outside the train quite a bit. And there's like a whole foot chase. And that's not as like big and dumb as it probably sounds in the context of a movie like this. But yeah, and it does kind of take away from the intensity of this would be in the enclosed space, and as it gets closer and closer, the mystery unravels itself more and more. Everything like starts to squeeze in, but you don't get that when people keep leaving the train. That's a completely valid criticism, but I think it's fine because it made it feel like we got that. We got that with the original movie, and here Branagh's going to do something a little different while keeping the story in line, and it kind of gives them a bit more freedom. There's a bit more like open air. He's on like the top of the train and all that. We've got these really great snowy backgrounds. It's like if the ending of Snowpiercer had been less catastrophic and everybody just got stuck. That's that's what we have here. With pretty much the same background. It was also like the exteriors were like watching the Polar Express, only it looks more real. It does once again. The exteriors do look very, this is put together in post-production, but not enough that it still looks fucking beautiful. Even if it does look a little artificial, that doesn't take away from how good it looks aesthetically. So I really didn't mind that stuff, and especially the stuff we got towards the end with the setup in the tunnel. What I assume they refer to as the Last Supper shot. It has to be when Poirot's given his final laydown of what's going on. This movie has an incredible finale. like, holy shit. I mean, like, it's got a really good start. In the middle, there's a great scene here and a great scene there, but there are some lulls, and like I said, the characters don't always gel all the time. The dialogue doesn't always gel all the time. The dialogue doesn't feel as clever as it did in the original movie. But good God, does he bring it home for an awesome, awesome finale. Even when you know what it is, just the execution of it, no pun intended, it's just really well done and really, yes, beautifully done. I can say really as many times as I can, and I will not get my point across. This movie really ends on a high. Like, even if you're watching it and you just think, oh, well, it's okay, I guess. The ending, is amazing. Like I said, even when you know the ending, it's, yeah, so it's like, it justified being a remake of a mystery we already know the mystery of, with that ending and the way it was pulled off. So, immense credit to Branagh and his cinematographer and editor, too, for really pulling that off. That was just, I would not have guessed how well done that would end up being, but it really was. And the way he just likes to kind of play with the visuals, because once again, we do spend most of the time in the train, so it's like, visually, there's only so much you can do with this, but he finds a way. They do certainly find a way. There's the shot where they find the body, and it's like this overhead shot where we never go into the... We do eventually end up in the room, but in this particular scene, we don't go in there, and it's just this over-the-head shot. And it just really, really works for the scene. And then there's stuff like, it could maybe seem like gimmicky or like he's trying to make something flashy that it isn't, but it worked for me. The stuff where it's like it's shot through the glass, and the way it is makes it look like, it like doubles the images. He does it once when we're looking over the suspects, and then does it again in a scene, just a scene where he's talking to Willem Dafoe. And it just really pulls off nicely and really kind of adds, like, what feels like these other layers. I mean, it's probably not, but it feels like it's giving the scene more, like, substance and more layers just by showing it off in this fashion. And yeah, that was really working for me. And the whole idea of, I liked that the flashbacks were in black and white, and not just like cutting back and forth between color and black and white, but it almost made it look like, it wasn't just black and white, but it looked old, too. Like, he didn't mess with the aspect ratio, which I think probably would have helped a little bit if maybe been a bit too... Well, of course. I mean, if you're going to do it in black and white, you might as well do that, because that's the most obvious thing to do. So in a sense, maybe it's better he didn't do that, but, yeah, it just kind of looked like old, like we were actually, like they were showing that it was in the past, even though it was like 2 hours ago. But yeah, it just, I just really felt like that, just the whole movie itself just works on a visual level. That very last shot, like right as it fades out into the credits, is really fucking beautiful too. Yeah, that's pretty much about it. And even when they're just in the train, and when you look at the actors and the costumes and these performances and all that, where it feels... It's some of it that might feel kind of, you know, kind of shoddy or whatever, or kind of stilted. It's like, it does kind of give it this kind of old-fashioned feel. Like, it feels like an old-fashioned movie. And like I said, Branagh definitely has it in him to add, like, a sophistication to movies, especially nowadays, when it's... You really wouldn't imagine seeing a movie like this amidst what we get. Like I said, not that I don't like the really big blockbusters, the good ones anyway, or, you know, the horror movies or the action movies or whatever that is, the big, broad comedies or whatever, but it's really nice just right in the middle of this to see just the actors dressed really nice and acting sophisticated and solving an old-fashioned murder. It's just really nice to have right in the middle of this season like this. I guess right at the start of this season, I guess you could say. So, yeah, and like I said, it gives this whole kind of... The other movie kind of felt like it had a lightness to it, despite the dark subject matter at its center. And Poirot himself felt like a much lighter character, and almost comedic. But this movie really has, like, a dark, tragic underline to it. And I really like the way the ending really kind of goes with that as it goes into our final moments. So yeah, like every now and then in the middle, it's kind of like, it's never bad, and it's never, I would say it's never boring either, but it is kind of like, there are moments where you feel like they maybe could have tweaked something here or there just a little bit to kind of keep you much more on the edge of your seat than you probably will be. Particularly during, like, the interviews. But, yes, but for the most part it is very... I feel like it's very successful as far as being a remake to a story that's very... Like I said, that's just... It's really touchy territory remaking something like this because it all builds on the suspense and the mystery about it, but if enough people know, then what's the point? But I feel like it does pull it off quite well, so yes, great. Our second movie is going to be American Assassin. It's all downhill from here. So, American Assassin begins with Dylan O'Brien, who thankfully is alive. I didn't hear anything for a long time about him after that whole Maze Runner incident where he got run over by a car. And I had assumed he hadn't been working except for Deepwater Horizon. But now we're getting that Maze Runner movie as well as this. And he shows up, giving me, like, Paul Walker vibes as he goes with his girl on the beach. He proposes, it's a nice romantic scene. And then terrorists show up and shoot a bunch of people, including her. And now he's out for revenge on the terrorists responsible for this. And you think there's a little bit of a bamboozle. Just when you think the whole plot is him going to be tracking down this guy that's responsible for this, that's actually taken care of very quickly because that is only a segue to a bunch of new characters that are going to take him in a whole different, not a whole different direction. It's the same idea, just not the same person. But he's going to, yes, become this agent of sorts, or assassin of sorts, I don't know. First, before he does anything, he's got to be viciously trained by Michael Keaton. And so, before this, he builds up for his big revenge plan. He goes to MMA gyms, and he beats the shit out of people. He goes to, like, gun ranges and just shoots the shit out of them. He actually crosses the line and goes in there, and they actually have to say, "Are you a dumbass? You're going to get shot." Very, very reckless, very, you know, bloodthirsty, revenge-driven, etc. So, finally, he gets involved with Michael Keaton, and Michael Keaton is going to train him to be this killer and eventually go after the villain, who is Taylor Kitsch, who was like him at one point and has now gone rogue. And Michael Keaton's the kind of guy that wears the hats and the sunglasses, walks around in the woods, says stuff like, "Your enemy dresses like a deer, but he kills like a lion." And then he shows them how to cut a throat. He pulls Dylan O'Brien over the table and, like, threatens to beat the shit out of him and says, "You better, you know, get in this." He really gets under his skin to manipulate him. He shows him the video of the day he proposed to her, which also is her death video, right before he pulls him over the table like that. And then he does this thing where he's in a simulation. It's like a Men in Black thing where he's got to shoot the targets. And if you don't shoot somebody that's not a target, you get fucking zapped. And the problem is he keeps putting the guy in there that killed his girlfriend, but that's not one of the targets. So every time he goes to kill the dude that killed his girlfriend, he gets fucking zapped for it. And it's like, okay, I see where this character can work, but once you look at it as a whole, all these characters are ridiculous cliches. And it's like you've seen these characters so many times before, they've been done a lot better before. Even bringing in an actor like Michael Keaton can only do so much. Like, he can only do so much with the material. He does what he can, but it's not enough to fix all the cliches in this movie. This movie is... I actually started to... We're speaking a bit metaphorically here, but just to get my drift. It's to the point to where I was actually afraid I was going to miss something because I could not stop rolling my eyes. It's like, I wonder how many story points I missed just looking up at the fucking ceiling because of the dumb shit that keeps happening. Oh, okay. But what happens here continues, and this is one of those movies that has stuff like when he's showing them how to cut a throat. He says, "You gotta do it this way. You do it like this." No, because this isn't a movie. It's not like it is in the movies. It's like, it's really funny he said that, because this movie has a lot of stuff in it that happens to where you're like, that shit only happens in the movies, which makes the train scene kind of dumb in retrospect. We have stuff like, there is a moment when somebody gets hit by a car, and their immediate response to this is to get right up and steal the car. Okay. There is, this is one of those movies that has scenes where it's like, if you want to steal something from somebody, if you want to steal, like, a super secret key that's going to get you in everywhere, or you need, like, super secret files this person has, all you have to do is walk up to them on the street and, like, bump into their shoulder, and voila, you've suddenly taken it off of them. This is the kind of movie that has this stuff and wants to say, hey, this ain't like the movies. So that's fucking dumb. And then, once again, we continue on to Cliché Land. There is, we're eventually going to have an ally here. And wouldn't you bet that this ally is a woman? So, would you also want to bet that we have the scene when Dylan O'Brien goes into action and he gets his, shit fucked up, but he ultimately kills some people, and then when he comes back after all this, there's going to be a scene where he and the girl talk softly to each other on a hotel bed while she bandages him up. It's like, yes, you've seen one movie like this, you have seen the rest of them. There's really hardly anything to add. There is, I actually was going to make this example without even making the connection of the movie I just talked about. The action scenes in this movie were kind of reminding me of the ones in Jack Bryan's Shadow Recruit, only less interesting. Because you know how it's like there's an interesting fight in there, but it's like overall it just feels very bland and it's not really that exciting and it just feels very run-of-the-mill and you're just kind of waiting. So how long do we have to watch this little ballet before the before the movie goes on? Because the movie feels lengthy, especially for a movie like this. It's probably about an hour 50, which, like I said, it feels long. It's because it spends too much time either going in all the places we know it's going to, or not going anywhere at all, and sticking us with these characters that we already know front to back before the movie even came on. And I gotta tell you, seeing these characters again, it's not like seeing an old friend. It's like seeing an old friend, but the last time you saw this friend, they kicked you in the fucking balls. And it's like, so your immediate instinct is, you know what, let's not. There's so many better things we could be doing in this direction. I'm sure there's got to be a better movie here somewhere. And this is also one of those movies that is rated R, and I think it really desperately wants you to know that. Because it's like, this is definitely a PG-13 movie drowning in fucks and blood. It really is. Every time somebody says the word fuck, it feels really forced. And every time it's bloody, it's like super bloody. Like, the first gunshot in the movie is one of those cases where blood hits the camera. But it's that CGI blood. Where, like, it's like this, it's like red that comes out of them and then suddenly it just disappears without a trace. There's a lot of that. And so it's like, you watch these action scenes I was talking about, and it's like, did they think, oh, the more blood, the more interesting, right? And it's like, no. That's not really how that works, I'm sorry. There are a lot of amazing action scenes that hardly have any blood in them. The Bourne movies. I don't recall the Bourne movies being that bloody. And they've only got the PG-13 to work with, and they pull it off just fine. What's your problem, American Assassin? And I do think another problem here is our main character. Because it's like, it probably would have maybe been a bit more interesting if it weren't for the fact that we've known him for about a minute and a half before he's suddenly this vengeance-seeking, bloodthirsty killing machine, or wants to be that. Because it's just, hey, I proposed to my girlfriend, I'm gonna go get drinks, and then suddenly the character changed, and it's like, maybe if we had actually seen who he was as a person prior to this, and then we see him become the, vengeance-looking dude, then maybe there would have been, like, kind of an interesting character thing to go in here, which ultimately would have made the movie more suspenseful, because then we know where exactly he's coming from. And it's like, I know the whole death of her is supposed to do that anyway, but it's like, for this character, it's really not enough. We're really not given enough at all to really give a shit. It's like they mainly just said, you're probably here for, like, the training stuff and all that, right? And the action and stuff, and the CGI blood and all that. It doesn't help either that Dylan O'Brien's a really weird casting choice. I really don't think I don't see him as leading action star whatsoever. For something like The Maze Runner, maybe, that he doesn't have to be this, like, jacked up killing machine type or whatever. So it's, but here it just looks off and looks weird. But here's the problem, is that you say, oh, well, you know, you're just here for the action and all that. But the problem is a large portion of this movie is the really boring shit they try to pass off as a plot. And it's like, we've kind of seen this shit before. A lot of it, anything that moves the plot along is dudes in suits sitting around a table fucking talking bullshit. And just saying, like, here's a word that sounds, government-like and secret-like, and we'll just do this, and then I'll walk away with a briefcase, and it'll look like we did some business and shit. And it's like, oh, this guy has, like, secret codes or some shit, or this guy has this thing, and it's like, well, we gotta follow this dude, we gotta bug this dude's hotel room. And it's like, half the time, it's like, you don't know what's going on because you don't fucking care to find out. At least that's how I felt. Maybe there's people that are into this. I don't know, but I just really I spent a lot of this hardcore action movie quite just bored with it. Like I said, the story is so uninteresting. The actors are trying to do what they can with these really cliche characters, but there's nothing here to offer whatsoever. I was thinking back to stuff like the Pierce Brosnan movie, The November Man, to where it's like, what can you say about this movie other than count the cliches? It's like the movie doesn't give you anything else to take away from it. And as a viewer, if you can't come away saying, oh, well, I can talk very much in depth about what's wrong with this and this, but it's like, no, the movie's just so surface level, all the shit we've seen before, it leaves you with nothing. Doesn't even say, oh, this action scene was kind of cool, or oh, this particular kill scene was like, whoa, or there's a story turn that's like, didn't see that coming. Just nothing like that. It's just bland-ass shit trying to, like, disguise itself in fucks and violence to make it look like it's really some kind of hardcore thing amidst PG-13 action movies, and, like, this is something that's really different and really goes for it, but no, I never got that vibe from this. And it made me wonder, how does stuff like this end up in Michael Keaton's hands? Because he's, like, really... I mean, he may have lost the Oscar for Birdman, but, I mean, he got to follow it up with Spotlight. He was... Obviously, The Founder didn't get a great reception, but still, it was a nice, big, meaty role for him that he did get looked at for, but the movie didn't really take. And then stuff like Spider-Man, that's just huge in general, and that he's one of, like, the shining points in. And it's like, so how does something like this end up in his hands? And he says, yeah, okay, I'll do that. It's not like he needs a paycheck. He just did Spider-Man. It's like, I think Spider-Man alone may have set him for the rest of his life. Especially if he's gonna continue in the franchise. So, yes, I would love to know the story behind how Michael Keaton ended up in this, how these people even got the script in his hands. It should be its own documentary. So, that's kind of a waste. And I was kind of hoping for just, hey, let's just watch an action movie, let's just see what happens. But it kind of, yeah. I was also, I guess with the beginning, I was also kind of thinking back to that Mechanic sequel that was like last year with Jason Statham that we really didn't need, and it was like, even that, it's just like, even when you want a dumb action movie, this is not gonna work. Like, this goes below dumb action movie. Dumb action movies are, great, like Black Dog with Patrick Swayze, or fucking anything, really. Like, even action comedies, just, that are, like, lower level, surpass this. So, there's no reason for this. Our last movie is going to be Kidnap, the Halle Berry action thriller whatever thing, where you'll never guess what the plot is. So what happens here is she's on the verge of divorce, but right now she's hanging out with her kid, but she works at a diner, and they're gonna go to the park or whatever, but she can't get off work because nobody's showing up, and she's still on the clock, and she's gotta work until somebody shows up to take her place. Dude's trying to get her to work a double, she can't, because the kid's right here, he's got nowhere else to go, and she promised. So, this goes, and it's like, I started to feel like, so is this, like, gonna be, like, Enough? The Jennifer Lopez movie, which was really damn bad. And, like, once again, tried to go back to that old cheesy material, but it just didn't work. It just stopped at the cheesy thing and wasn't anything enjoyable out of it. So it goes on, and we realize, oh, she's a hard-working mom. She's at this diner. And it's like there's one girl that's like just being very impatient and just not nice at all. Just has that attitude about her. And she forgot this dude's order, and this dude hasn't gotten his stuff yet. This kid can't decide what he wants. And she's just going in circles and going in circles and going in circles, and you're like, okay, this is the introduction to her character. Let's see how this plays out. It's like, who's she going to blow up at? Is she going to blow up at one of the customers? Is she going to blow up at the whole place? Is she going to quit her job? What big character-defining thing is going to happen in this big opening scene? Because this diner scene goes on and on forever. It's like the entire opening 15 minutes of this diner scene. And no. Maybe, I guess when you look at the rest of the movie, it shows her persistence, which I guess is important, but not enough to where it feels like it justifies how long we establish this with one scene. It really feels like they're trying to bring this to a certain length. So this scene has to go on and on and on and on and on, but it's like, you have the rest of the movie to do this, and you're going to do it. This scene does not need to be this long. It made its point 5 minutes ago. If you had cut this scene off 5 minutes ago, the point it's going to make later in the movie still makes perfect sense. But it just keeps going and going. But then finally, she gets off work, she takes the kid. Done. No big blowout, no nothing. She just finally gets off work. They find the person that hadn't shown up yet. So, yay! That's our opening scene. If you want to discount the whole home movies bullshit. So, we see her with this kid, and it's like, we know something bad's gonna happen, and we know that her love is gonna drive this, because they spend the whole movie up to the point that he gets kidnapped just fucking looking at each other and smiling. It's like any other child or mother would be creeped out by this point if one or the other was looking at them like this constantly. And it's like, they do that at the diner. When he's in the back seat, she's doing it in the rearview mirror, and he's looking at her and doing this. When they're at the park, all they do is fucking smile at each other. It's... And then, of course, once again, we know a kidnapping is coming because of the title. So, they start this game where, the Marco Polo game. She says Marco, he says Polo, etc. But, it's like, oh, the very first time they do this, the very first time she says Marco and he says Polo in return, you're like, oh, well, I know what purpose that serves. Let's wait for the scene where she screams Marco and nobody answers. I'm waiting, and they play the Marco Polo game like 5 more times to build it up as if you forget. Here's the thing, is, I don't know, maybe it's their whole thing of, hey, we're gonna do this, like, out for it, but I don't know, because what happens is, she's like, okay, this is when he gets kidnapped, because she sits him on a bench, and he's like, I need to answer the phone. It's the lawyer, and I think your dad's gonna try to take you away and shit. So I gotta take this, okay? And then while he's fucking sitting there, and she's looking at him, they're like this close together, she says Marco, just so he says Polo back. It's like, that's not how this game works, Halle Berry. You gotta fucking leave first. But it's like, this is gonna be important, so let's do this one more time so the audience knows what to expect, okay? And so, finally, after all that, we eventually get the scene we're looking for. She says Marco, nobody responds. But then, the movie does something interesting. And I mean this in a good way. This scene where they really kind of turn the whole kidnapping cliche on its head a little bit. Where usually, and even the best kidnapping movies like Ransom, this happens. It's always the parent takes their eye off the kid for a second, turn back around, lo and behold, the kid is gone, vanished into thin air, everybody's gone, nobody saw anything at all, and then you're just lost. You have no idea where to look until you get some ransom phone call or whatever. But this isn't that movie. She goes to the parking lot and sees the kid being pulled into the car. She actually witnesses the kidnapping. She even sees the person's face. And then they take off in the car, and she fucking chases them. And I was like, okay, well, that's... And this ensuing chase, and I was like, okay, wow, this is a pretty interesting new direction. We've seen this plot go. But then it's like, I mean, the editing is a fucking nightmare. It really is. But still, it's a pretty effective set-off to the movie. And then I was pleased with this before I realized, oh, this chase is the movie. This isn't the opening scene. This is the movie. Is the chase. And it's like, okay, I can see this working, but I don't think this movie has what it takes to pull it off. Um, it doesn't have enough, like, I guess you could say people with the resume to pull this off. So, I was kind of interested to see where it would go, like how long this can last. And obviously, it sets itself up. Number one, feels very familiar to another very recent Halle Berry movie, which is The Call, which is terrible. Yes, I know, if you can see that, it's sitting right here, but that's only because somebody I know had a duplicate, and I was like, fuck it, I'll take it. So, it adds to the collection. And maybe I'll be in the mood to watch a bad movie again soon, I don't know. So yeah, it does feel like she's pretty much just revisiting this territory. And it's like, this is an Oscar-winning actress who's put out, you know, a number of good performances. She's been in bad territory for a while. She did that shark movie with Olivia Martinez that was one of the worst things ever. Like Dark Places with that Chloe Moretz movie. What was that thing called? I don't remember now, but I saw it. And but the thing here is, I could see where this could work, but the movie pretty much makes the mistakes you know it's gonna make, because it's still, even though it has a start like that that makes you say, oh, this is doing something different, it still makes the same mistakes you'd expect a movie of this caliber to make. There'll be a lot of they try to catch themselves, because there are moments when she's chasing the car, and they like start throwing stuff out the back to kind of throw her off. And they're in traffic when they're doing this. And so she actually says to herself, is anybody else seeing this? Please, will somebody call the cops? But the chase keeps going and going. And also, they've taken the license plate off the back of their car, so they can't be traced that way. But it's like, how far can these people go before they get caught not having a license plate? It's like, forget the fact that they've hung a child out of the car, and they have a knife, and they're saying, if you do anything drastic, we're gonna kill him now. And it's like, it's just in the view of everybody. And it's, and it's like, all this, throwing stuff out the back, trying to, you know, crash other drivers, but it's like, of all things, though, of all things, how far are they gonna get without a license plate? That shit's gonna get them caught so fast. So you spend a lot of the movie asking a lot of questions like that, and that definitely takes away from it. And it makes the movie, it's not necessarily like you can't enjoy a dumb action movie, it's just more along the lines of the fact that the movie's not even trying to be remotely smart about its premise. It's like it has the premise, and it doesn't want to do any extra thinking, it just wants to go with that premise. And yeah, obviously that can work if the movie's entertaining enough. But the thing here is that this movie can't quite withstand what it has. There's not enough ideas in the movie. Because we have stuff like, there's a lot of scenes that are just like long scenes of just coasting. To where it's like there's hardly even a chase aspect anymore. It's just like she has no choice but to just linger behind them. And it's like, once again, even though the point has since been made, it's just like the scenes just kind of keep going. And we just kind of wait and whatever. I suppose in a better handled movie, scenes like this would work because it makes the chase feel more like, I don't know if epic is the word, but something like that. But or feel their actual length, like actually make the audience feel like they've gone through it. But it's just like 1 minute it's like going constantly, the next minute it's like hitting the brakes, and it kind of keeps doing that. So. And it's not really, after a while, this does not become near as engaging as it was in the first 5 minutes of it. It's like, you kind of pretty much put all your potential in the first 5 minutes of this chase, and now it's just like, oh, well, we're still chasing them, okay. Oh, they're in a different car now? Oh, okay, well, we're still chasing them. And it just, and it leaves you with a lot of questions, like, why aren't characters doing this? Why is this character doing that? You know, she could easily do this, she could easily do that. But it's one of those movies, and it's like, I guess you should know going in, but yeah, but I mean, it's not as bad as it could have been. I like it more than I liked American Assassin, so at least there's that. It had some entertainment value, even if it was short-lived. But then it gets to the end, and then it's like, by the end, it's prisoners. It's trying hard to be prisoners. If you can believe Kidnap, the Halle Berry action movie bullshit thing here. I actually think it's going to try and be prisoners by the end of this. And they throw in another character at the very last minute. And it's like to kind of throw you off, but it's like, wow, that was just really tacked on. And that was kind of... We just really didn't need that character that was here for 10 seconds and got immediately resolved. So, yeah. There's worse out there. Like, if this kind of dumb shit is entertaining enough, then fine. It's not, like, gonna completely kill brain activity or whatever, but it's... not to say I won't try. So, that's what we have for this week. Tomorrow we've got some Mark Wahlberg in our verses. Some other actors too, but I don't want to... I don't know, for some reason Owen started this thing where we don't give away what the verses is, so yeah. But yeah, there's another actor as well that's in them. And we'll go on that. Next week we have Justice League. Like I said, I might talk about those Antonio Banderas movies also. And a sci-fi versus. So, yes. So that's what we have for this week. And I have nothing else to add to this, so that's it.